So hi, everybody. Nice to see you all here. Uh, it's a very exciting time, I feel, in the life of the church, because we never before have been given an opportunity to actually go out there and show how we love our neighbor in such an obvious way. So I'm just going to share screen right now. Okay. Right, can everybody see this one? Models of food aid?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. So I'm just going to go through a few models of food aid. I personally, just to introduce myself, I am a full-time ministry worker. I'm a volunteer at the St. Mary's ACP Mission School. And although we are a school for refugees, during COVID MCOs and all that, we had to pivot towards feeding the families. I'll talk a little bit more about that. So I've been doing this for about 7 years now. And yeah, it's been a huge blessing. It's more, I think, been more of a blessing to me and my family. Maybe my husband might disagree, but it's been a huge blessing working with the refugees. So okay, so let's just jump straight into it. Large scale feeding. So there are many models of food aid that you can imagine. A lot of it is already happening in KL. So I've picked out a few examples just to show you how people do it. So large scale feeding, we're talking about having budgets into the hundreds of thousands of food packs every week. I mean, lots of people being fed. So, and a good example of this is Refuge for the Refugees. If you want to see how they work, you can go onto their Facebook site, have a look at it. They feed multiple families every single week, but you have to register for it. So there's a very simple kind of like a sign-up sheet. You sign up for it, you tell them where you are, how many people in the family, and they will actually drop the food with you. Now, they do not repeat the same families. So if you finish your food, you sign up for it, and then they will drop food again at their next allocated run through for your area. They do their own deliveries via volunteers. And, you know, you're talking about last MCO, BMW came alongside them and they did a whole bunch of deliveries with the BMW showroom cars. So it's good advertising for BMW. But they are one of the largest food aid programs that currently are in the Klang Valley in KL. Next, we talk about medium scale stuff. So I'm going to give two examples here. One is Holy Trinity Bukit Bintang, a relatively young church, and one is the ACP Mission School. So HTBB feeds about 180 families. They do repeated families and they do it only once a month. So they prioritize rice and non-perishable food, but it also depends on what they get in from other people. So they sometimes have surplus, and their surplus goes towards helping other churches who have approached them as to, you know, how do you start your food program, or what's going to happen. And they also have an emergency list of people who are in the waiting list, which they have not been able to help, but if there's surplus, they will. So if you look at the picture below, you can see that they have a massive staging area in the church. And these are the food packs. They fill up the cars this way and they do individual deliveries. And so this is quite volunteer intensive. If you look, this is a picture of all their volunteers. They're very volunteer intensive because, like with RFTR, Refuge for the Refugees, the aid has to be taken out by themselves. To contrast that, I'm just going to show you from our school, St. Mary's ACP Mission School. So during the beginning of the MCO, our main focus was on the 72 families for which our students came from. So that was the relationship. We had a relationship with them and we wanted to start making sure that they were okay through the MCO. As the MCOs progressed, what happened was that the children and the family started reaching out to us saying, oh, my cousin in this area doesn't have food. My cousin in that area doesn't have food. And we began to realize that this is now an issue of sustenance, not enjoyment. It's not, so people have this thing is like, oh, how do you know if you give them, they're not getting any help from anywhere else? I hear this quite a lot. I hear a lot of people who are concerned that families might be double dipping, getting from one area, getting from another donor. I would like to say that in this time, nobody's getting rich. If they are getting a little bit more food and they can go 2 weeks instead of one, then, you know, I really don't think it's a reason for us to not help them. So what we have done slightly differently is that we outsource our ordering and delivery, and we deliver every 2 weeks. So we're currently feeding close to 600 people. We have 5 zones and designated zone leaders. So we don't deliver to doorstep. We deliver to a zone leader the zone leader will actually do the collection and then tell the various families, give them a time to come in and pick it up. And we do a lot of collaborations with, for example, Lost Food Project and individual companies, I guess. So if you look at this picture over here, this is what happens. Maybe it happens once a week or once every 2 weeks. This is a delivery by the Lost Food Project. As you can see, this is only half of our classroom. The other half has more of the same. We're not fussy what we receive. So we tell Lost Food Project, it doesn't matter if you have 3 crates of spring onions. A lot of local charities will not take that because they say our people will not eat this or will not eat that. But the refugees, they'll eat everything. So we often have heaps of spring onion, and the refugees will take it off and they'll stir fry, make kimchi, whatever it is that they do with it. But every single bit gets used. So we collaborate with Lost Food Project, and they give bread, they give cooked food like in here. So the last picture over here, you'll see a kid with bread from Bread Story. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, this one, Bread Story. And so these are collaborations that we do with other people, because we are, at the moment are fairly large, and it's very hard to have the resources to feed everybody by yourself. Okay. Now we have slightly small scale. So this is I've got 3 pictures here where over here you have Sungkai. This is Holy Cross Church, Setiawan, and this is St. Augustine's Church in Ipoh, where they've been doing vouchers. Now, oh, I've got some drawing. Yeah, in any case, so this is slightly small scale. We're talking about food pantry or food packs. You have it either cooked food, which is delivered individually to the families, or you have stuff that is like outside your church and they come and they take what they need and they drop off what it is that they can. Or like this one, you do vouchers. It doesn't actually matter what you do. We're firmly in the belief that you should start just doing something, because it's a learning process. So when we first started feeding, it was a mess because we tried to do Tesco, we tried to do this and that, and it was all a mess. And we didn't know who we should say yes to, we didn't know who we should say no to. But at the end of the day, the priority right now is that people should survive. There are people who I have spoken to, and they just said to me, I just need to get by today. We're sitting in our homes, we're comfortable in our churches, and we don't have an issue really with getting by today. So, this is something that I think is quite crucial, that we help as many people as we can just get by today. So what do you need to start? This is quite an interesting thing, because it depends on obviously what size your ministry is going to be. So first of all, the most important thing is you need to have a team, because as far as accountability is concerned, our St. Mary's Agape School team, as far as the MCO feeding is concerned, consists of myself, a volunteer in Penang, as well as Deaconess Cheng Li. So we try and make sure that any decisions that are made to add people, remove people, or whatever, are made between the 3 of us. Because it shouldn't ever be one person who's deciding whether people get food or don't get food. Because what happens if you don't like the looks of that guy? I mean, you're not going to feed him. So somebody has to be there in order to really give you a little bit of objectivity. The next thing, obviously, which is very important, is money. So at the moment, each delivery we have, we are saying that it's between 50 and 100 ringgit per pack per family. Obviously, if the family is like 9 people, 10 people, we tend to make it a little bit more. And if it's like 1 or 2 people, we tend to make it a little less. But 50 to 100 per pack is roughly what everybody is doing, including RFTR, including many of the other individual feeding groups. Now, obviously, if your ministry has a lot more money, you can give more, and you have less, you can do less. And this is all really, it just depends on what you're able to. But between 50 and 100, you can really fill it up with all the major food groups. So we're talking about carbs like rice, you're talking about protein, maybe tofu, maybe dal, you're talking about fiber. So you can get them like kangkong and stuff like that, which is cheap. Vitamin C, we normally give them limes. And then obviously you have standard salt, sugar, which obviously doesn't have to be given every time if you're doing a repeated ministry. You have to think about whether people are going to be giving you cash donations, whether they're going to be giving in kind, and whether or not, so this is a very interesting thing, what I call backyard goodies. Now, you will be surprised how many people out there have access to, oh, you know, my garden, I just had 5 papayas or something like that. And the important thing to tell people is that anything is fine. You know, you can use anything. So, for example, if people donate a bag of rambutans, some families may have it, some families don't, and that's fine. But all this can be used, and it really helps the person who is donating, because when they donate once, they're more likely to donate again. The third thing here I put is a staging area. So if you've seen in all the different ministries that have been done, you're always going to need a staging area. You're always going to need somebody who can help with the packing, manning the tables. If you're doing a drive-through, who is going to help with the traffic flow? You're going to need somewhere where you can really unload a whole bunch of stuff and repack it into a bunch of bags. Again, that depends whether or not you are doing food packs or whether you're doing food pantry. Because obviously food pantry, all you need is a table, right? The fourth thing I've put down here is identifying recipients. Now, we are called to love our neighbor, and there's nobody closer to us than family and congregation. So one of the things that I would say is that you really need to make sure that there's not somebody in your congregation who can't make it through tomorrow while you are busy trying to identify people around you who need help. So I've put here congregation, word of mouth, and door to door. And these are the various ways that we know regularly that happens. So for many of the B40 groups, we know that they can't actually do this bandera putih thing. This white flag thing doesn't actually work for them. So when I spoke to somebody I know who is involved in B40 group feeding, what he said was that they actually had to go door to door because these people were not identifying themselves. They were ashamed to, they were embarrassed. And this is one of the main things, you know, it's to not have them, you know, they will say, oh, I feel so bad, I feel so embarrassed. And what I normally try and say to them is that there's no need to. We are called to love our neighbor. So today you are getting help. Maybe one day you can help somebody else, right? But the whole idea of being embarrassed to ask for food, I think is making a lot of unnecessary suffering. I also wanted to flag this here, which is called kitajaga.co. It's a wonderful website that, let me just try and pull it up for you. Oh dear. It's a wonderful website that somebody created in Malaysia. And for some reason, I cannot, hang on. Oh dear. No, apologize for that. Wait, I have got, Nicholas, I wonder if you can help me. For some reason, I've got the toolbar, the Zoom toolbar blocking out. Wait, right, sorry, my bad. Okay, so if you look at this is Kita Jaga. Okay, it's a site where all the red pins are people who need help. All the blue pins are people who are willing to help. So I'm going to show you, for example, a red pin. So let's just pin on one red pin. So for example, if you look at it, this person says, you know, I need help, whatever. And the site will actually also tell you this person has used this phone number twice, right? If you, for example, are a church and you're doing a drive-through, or you are doing pantry where you have a table in front of the church, you can actually put a blue pin and you can say, okay, this is what I'm able to help with. So this is quite good, because if you're looking at maybe smaller teams, say, for example, your cell group or your social concern ministry wants to actually help people and not sure how to, this is one way of actually doing it, where as a cell group, you can say, okay, we're just going to pick 5 of the flags nearest us and we're going to help them that way. So that's one way. I've more or less said everything I need to say in terms of the various teams, but just the final thought to consider is that in every church, there are donors, volunteers, and recipients. Now, very often the recipients can become the volunteers can become the donors. So it's about really, it's about energizing everybody to realizing that you don't have to give big. Not everybody has to give 10,000, 1,000 or whatever. But if you have 10 people who are willing to give 20, you've got 200 ringgit. You can feed 2 families for half a month to a month. Very little can go a very long way when it comes to food packs. So, okay, that's pretty much all I wanted to say. And I'm trying hard to stop my screen share. Right. Okay, so that's all I have to say. And thank you very much for your patience.